Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Nasr, and this is the Azure Cleveland User Group. If you're joining us for the first time, the meetings occur monthly, every second week typically, and the meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and we cover a variety of topics related to Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. You can find all the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. We'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website, and NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. In addition, some general information. First and foremost, please keep in mind participation is encouraged. At any point, if you have a question, feel free to jump in, and always keep in mind the only stupid question is the one not being asked. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we want to keep it casual but organized, meaning feel free to jump in with questions or comments, but at the same time, we want to have enough time to go through all the slides and the demos. And the presentation is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube in a few short days after the editing process. And so with that, tonight's presentation is going to be all about AI agents, and it will be done by yours truly. And a little bit about me. My name is Sam Nasr. You can find me on Twitter or X at Sam Nasr. I've been a software developer since 1995, and I'm a senior software engineer and trainer for NIS Technologies. I've been certified with multiple certifications from Microsoft, and I run the Cleveland C# user group as well as the Azure Cleveland user group. In addition, I've been a technical author for both print as well as video courses on LinkedIn Learning, and I'm an 8-time Microsoft MVP. So a little bit about the Cleveland user groups. As I mentioned, the Azure Cleveland group meets every second week of the month, in addition to the fact that it's free of charge and open to the public. But I also host the Cleveland C# user group, where you can find the information posted at meetup.com/Cleveland-CS. So both meetings meet monthly. Azure Cleveland is a second week. Cleveland C# user group meets every fourth week. So I strongly urge you to subscribe to both and be able to get the updates for the meetings. With that aside, let's jump into tonight's topic, and that is agents, AI agents to be specific. So the first question is, what is an agent? So I always like to describe it as this. An agent is considered to be a chatbot that is enabled with tools. And think of it this way. We've all worked with LLMs in the past, whether it's through ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or implementing our own LLM. Basically, you can ask it a question as a chatbot, and it will reply with an answer. But it really can't do much more beyond that, meaning it can't execute any actions, it can't make a call to a database, it can't send out emails, it can't look things up. So it is rather limited. Now, what an agent is basically built on an LLM, where we now give it instructions as well as tools. So tools that will enable it to be able to interact with other agents, be able to send out emails, be able to do database lookups, do API lookups where it can call other websites and retrieve information. So it is much more capable than just a chatbot. And consider agents to be the new microservices, where they are designed or should be designed to be very task focused on a specific thing, as opposed to doing all things at once. And the reason for that is the more we break it down into singular tasks, the more that those agents could be used throughout the organization in a variety of different ways, just like microservices. So as we see in this diagram, essentially we want to set up our agents so that it has the instructions. It is based on an LLM or a large language model, and then we connect it with various tools for doing a variety of things. And just like we set up a large language model in the past where we give it user messages as well as safety messages, it's the same thing when we set it up for a use with an agent. But on top of that, we give the agent instructions on how to perform things, and be able to interact with other tools. So now the next question is, how do we build an agent? So there's a variety of ways. The easiest and the best way that I found was doing it through the Azure AI Foundry. In addition, you can do it through the Microsoft Agent Framework, which will roll in the semantic kernel, as well as the agent framework. The other option is utilizing GitHub Copilot, where we can now build custom Copilot experience agents for our own purposes. For this would require Copilot Pro, Pro Plus, or higher editions of GitHub Copilot. A fourth option that is currently in preview is called the computer use agents. And what this entails is essentially downloading the Foundry local. So it would be running on my machine, and then I would set up the agent, and then I could have the agent running on my local machine, where, for example, it can go to a website, download a specific PDF form, or a PDF document, be able to scan through that document, extract certain fields, and then go to yet another website and be able to enter those fields in. So it's very intelligent, and it will be executing locally on my machine. The fifth option is utilizing Microsoft Fabric, where I have all my data in Fabric. I can now create an agent that would go against that data, and I can have a Q&A or a dialogue with that agent, be able to retrieve data from the database, customized specifically to what I had asked it for. So let me just pause here for a second and see if there's any questions. And so far, nothing in chat. Again, feel free to jump in either verbally or in chat whenever a question arises. And since there is none, let's jump into a demo. So we'll look at the AI Foundry. Before we get into the Foundry, I just want to touch on the Azure portal. So I'm sure many of you have used the Azure portal in the past. And in order to be able to use the Foundry, you need to have an Azure subscription set up. The way I like to describe it, think of the Azure portal as a large umbrella of services. Think of a large bank, for example, where you can have a checking account, a savings account, a stock trading account, and be able to interact with those different accounts, meaning I can buy and sell stocks, but everything is tied back into my identity or my account that I have set up with that bank. It's the same thing with the Azure portal. Once I set up the account, I can now go off into the AI Foundry, be able to create LLM models, deploy them, utilize them with agents, and then everything is tied back to my Azure subscription for the billing. So that includes the training costs, the token usage, as well as the storage for any data that I may have. Everything will be tied back to my Azure subscription. So getting into the Foundry, for starters, I will go over into the Agents tab, and you'll see that I have a variety of agents that I've created previously. Now, to do this, if you want to build an agent from scratch, what I did was I've gotten several screen captions as I was creating the agent, and this is kind of a time warp walking through all the screen captions that you'll encounter once you're creating an agent without having to sit and wait as things are being created. So the first thing to do is, after you have your Azure subscription, once you're in the AI Foundry, is you're going to create an AI Foundry resource. What this entails is essentially creating a Foundry hub and then a project within that hub. And we'll talk more about that later, but essentially think of the hub and the projects like a hub and spoke model. You have one large hub that contains access to a variety of different resources, and then you have all the projects that can be created underneath it that will inherit those resources. So in the past, those had to be created separately, but within the past year or so, Microsoft had then combined everything so that all you have to do is simply select Azure AI Foundry resource, and then you're off and running. So once that's selected, you can then create a project and you give it the various names. And let me enlarge the screen here for a better fit. And I'm specifying things like the Azure subscription that I have, the resource group where I want it to reside, and then the region that the specific project will be in. Then once that's created, the next step is to actually deploy a model. So I'll go into the model playground, select the model, and then of course I have to specify the version of the model, and then the token limits, and a variety of other parameters. Deployment type as we see here, and we'll touch more on that later. And then I'm able to deploy the model and I'm off and running. Once the model is deployed, now I can either chat with that model directly or I can create an agent based on that model. So to create an agent, I would jump into the agents playground, select new agents, and then be able to specify the various parameters that pop up in the right-hand side. So let's do that. So we'll go over again into my AI Foundry. This is where we left off. I'll select new agents. And once you click new agent, you are now given an agent ID with this random name where I can then modify it, or better yet, give it another name. And we'll call it agent, and we'll go with 11/12 for today's date. I'm going to select from the various models that I have deployed, or in this scenario, I only have one model deployed to my AI Foundry project. So I'll select that. And now I can give it a set of instructions. So, so here I can say, tell me what the weather will be in Cleveland tomorrow. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of the game. What I need to do is give it instructions, and the instruction will be, you're an agent that provides weather info for Cleveland, Ohio. And then I'll make sure that that's spelled right. And then once I tab out of it or lose focus from that box, you'll notice that everything is saved as highlighted in the lower right-hand corner. So there's my sample agent. Didn't give it any tools yet, and just gave it a sample instruction. Now I'll go into the agent's playground and test it out. And I'll say, what will the weather be in Cleveland? Here it's asking for more of a specific question, and I'll cut and paste the same question, and I will say tomorrow. "72 degrees? I'm not sure if that's accurate, but we'll go with it. Maybe it's looking at Cleveland, Tennessee. Let me be more specific and specify Cleveland, Ohio. Still a little leery of that, but in any case, as you see, it is now a chatbot where I'm asking questions and getting answers based on the large language model that I selected. So far, it has really done nothing specific. Well, let's go into another agent that I created previously, and we'll go back to the Agents tab. And then here, I have an agent that suggests the attire that I should be wearing tomorrow based on the weather. So I gave it a specific instruction, and I said, you are an agent that tells me the forecasted weather for tomorrow in Cleveland at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. and I should change that to standard. You will provide recommendations on what type of clothes to wear. And then I go on and give it more detail, but more specifically, I said the responses should be 2 sentences maximum. And we'll go in and we'll run it. So we'll try it in the playground. And I'm not going to even ask it a specific question. I'm just going to say run. And it follows the instructions, and then it comes back with what the weather is going to be, and then a recommendation on what to wear. Now, what I did was, you notice it says it is recommended to wear a light to medium jacket or sweater to stay comfortable. But within my instructions, I said only respond using grounded content from the knowledge base. What is the knowledge base? If we proceed further down, we have knowledge tab, where from here, I can select to add, and I can see a variety of different knowledge sources or data sources that I can add in. One of them being a text file. As we see here, it's already grayed out because it's already enabled, but I can have it connect to Azure AI Search, Microsoft Fabric, SharePoint, and a variety of others that I have listed here. What does that knowledge base look like? If I go over into my demos, it is basically a flat file that contains just the information here, which is a variety of different clothing items. Now, in addition, I want it to be able to display the weather to me. So I have an action. An action is another name for tools. When I click on tools, or actions rather, I see that I have a variety of different things that I can utilize within my agent and have it communicate with it. So I can utilize a variety of different things, one of them being Azure Logic App. When I click on the Azure Logic Apps, it shows me all the various Logic Apps presented in 3 tabs. There are the ones that are Microsoft authored, there are ones that I had created, and then this is a full list of everything. So the ones that I had created were basically utilizing the get weather from MSN, where basically it is just going to show me the schema and the subscription that it's tied to. And what it's doing is it's reaching out to MSN weather. And there the schema is listed in HTTP or in JSON format, and it's showing me that it's going to be making an HTTP call, and then responding, and it's going to look for the location for the weather. Backtracking. So I specified the knowledge base, the type of clothing items that it's going to select from based on the weather that's specified here in the Actions tab. And that's how it's able to retrieve the information and reply back to me. So I enabled it by allowing it to be able to go out and do an HTTP lookup and then come back with the specific weather information for the specific time slot, as well as an entire recommendation based on that weather. Okay. Let me stop here and see if there's any questions. Is everyone with me? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Moving forward, taking a look at other agents that I had implemented, and again, we'll go back to the Agents tab. So this agent, what I did was I asked it to actually reach out to a website, retrieve JSON format files, and then be able to display that. So obviously, as you can tell by the URL, it is a fake JSON. The tool that I gave it was, let's go into manage. And basically, I enabled it to call an HTTP endpoint when triggered. So this is an HTTP Azure Logic app. And let me show you how I got there. So basically, I went into my Azure Logic apps, selected HTTP, and with mine, I just gave it a general description that you are to retrieve a JSON result set from a given website, but I didn't specify the website. And more specifically, if I go into here and do manage, there you see all I'm saying is call the HTTP endpoint when triggered. Where does it get that HTTP endpoint? From the instructions that are specified here. So I say retrieve a list of companies from fake JSON API, yada, yada, yada. And let me go ahead and cut and paste that link. And basically it retrieves raw JSON as you see here. And I got a company name, address, and various attributes for each company. So basically what we have here is the instructions being passed down from the agent down to the tool, as opposed to me embedding the URL in that tool, but rather I can alter it in the instruction set and then pass it to the tool. Think of it this way. If a mechanic was available and I'm giving him a new tool to use, he can use that screwdriver in a variety of ways, right? He can use it for leverage to actually pry something out. He can use it to actually screw in a screw or loosen it. So he can use it in a variety of different ways. I am passing that instruction down to the tool from the agent itself, or from the instruction set built into that agent. And you also notice the instructions is plain English. Just as I am dialoguing with you, it's the same thing. I am asking it to retrieve a list of companies from a specific website. When requested, display only company name and CEO on one line. Now, I specifically left and misspelled here. It is intelligent enough to be able to execute it and make sense out of it. In addition, display is also misspelled here. And so when I just type in run, actually, I'll even make it briefer than that. I'll say go. Okay, so there's a lot of info being generated here. And if you'll notice again in the instructions, I say first, display only company name and CEO on one line. Afterwards, display all the JSON in what's called pretty format. So everything is laid out nicely, each attribute on one line separate. But if I keep scrolling up, I'll see that it produced the data that I had requested, where I have the company name and the CEO only on the first line. And when I compare that to my full JSON set, it matches with the McGlynn Incorporated rather, and then the name of the CEO, Willa Labidi. Now, those of you that have been working in .NET development for some time, we're always used to seeing things in a structure, right? Everything ends with a semicolon. All the procedures need to be within open and closed braces. I can't wander outside of that. If I leave out a semicolon or put in an extra semicolon, what happens? I get a variety of different errors, right? Here, it's just natural spoken English that I'm entering in. And even with the misspellings, it's able to accommodate for that and work through it. So there's a lot of intelligence built into it within the large language models. Again, it's as if I am communicating with another person with a little bit of flexibility, even in the misspellings. Okay, any questions on that? All right. So moving forward, let's take a look at in the screen captions. So we looked at managing things within the AI Foundry, adding in a logic app, and evaluating responses. Okay, very good. So let's jump to that. So we see here that I put in a request where I just said go, and it followed the instructions. But what if I was to ask it something completely off the wall that doesn't relate to the instruction set? And the reason for that is I want to demonstrate how the evaluation of the model as well as the user request. So I will ask it an off-the-wall question like, what's the price of a new home? And I get back a rather polite answer that says, I really have no idea what you're talking about. The data provided from the company's API does not include information about home prices or real estate. Fair enough. Now, let's go into the thread logs up here. And we'll see that for every thread that I executed, that there was a run step. And then for the run steps, it shows the tools that were called. So initially, for the run, when I said just go, it made a call to the HTTP tool. It shows the URL that was called, or the URI rather, and then the output that was displayed. And then if I look at the second run that was executed where I said, what's the price of a new home? Then it shows me the results that was given back. More importantly, if I look at the evaluations, we see that for this second run, where it was rather an odd question that doesn't apply, as well as the response that wasn't adhering to the task that it was given, we see that we get a score of 3 out of 5 for the intent resolution, and then 1 out of 5 for the task adherence. When we look at the previous thread that was executed, or the previous run rather, and we go to evaluations, we see that the assistance response effectively retrieves a list of the company CEOs. And so for that, I get a 5 out of 5 for the intent resolution. So the evaluations is basically a set of, not a set, but rather an LLM that works on the back end to evaluate the prompt given as well as the response delivered to the end user. So it helps me evaluate how things have been tested and basically if it ties into what the instructions were intended for the model to behave like, or the agent rather. Now, if I go back into my playground, I see that with every request, let me scroll back down. Every request, I see the token usage in total, as well as the time to completion, and then the AI quality, how well it adheres to the specific task. And same thing here on the following task as well. And let me just take a peek over into the chat, and still no questions. Okay. Another thing I wanted to demonstrate is within the agents playground, you can essentially enable voice mode where I can now communicate with it verbally. And so here for this agent, as you see, it's already listening. And once I click end, it's going to compile that list of the things that I said verbally and then submit it to the agent. So let's try a clean run. Get me the list of companies.
Companies and CEOs: Ebert and Sons, Giles Padberg. Boyer Group, Orland Dietrich. Jakubowski, Stanton, and Leffler, Gladys Seamay.
And I assume the audio came through. Was everyone able to hear it? I had to stop it short because, again, it would have just rambled on. So, all right, very good. I'm getting thumbs up. Excellent. So where this comes in handy is if I have clients or users that are partially visually disabled. This helps to get around that, where they no longer have to type on the keyboard, but rather they can hit a button and be able to speak and have a verbal dialogue with the agent, be able to retrieve the results and listen to them, in addition to obviously asking it directly. Next, I wanted to show you implementing an agent through Fabric. So this is even much easier than what we had seen before, but essentially within Fabric, I can set up my my lake house where I'm pointing to a specific set of data. And we've all worked with AdventureWorks in the past, and that's what I set up here in the lake house. And essentially, I just start by giving it a list of agent instructions where I say I'm going to utilize 3 tables. Dim customer for detailed customer demographics. Sorry. I'm going to give it the list of tables to use and for what purposes, and again, explaining it in plain English. I then have the lake house, as we see here, with the data source instructions. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, this one I didn't provide instructions for it, but rather it was listed in the agent. And then in the lake house, what I did was, where this differs from the AI Foundry, is that I need to give it a couple of examples that go align with the set of instructions. So here I said, I want you to calculate the average percentage increase in sales amount for repeat purchases for every zip code. So I gave it the sample as well as a query to go along with it of how I wanted to query the tables. And I apologize, the window for that is rather small. So I gave it a couple samples as well as for the queries that go along with it. And then it was able to validate and train based on those queries and those instructions that I gave it. Once I was done, I'm able to go into testing the agent response, where I can now give it a set of instructions like show the monthly total and year-to-date total, and then order it by year and month. And as you see, it displays the results out as I had requested. I can modify it, and I'll start by pasting the original instruction, and I'll say, show me the monthly total and year to date. For 2014 and 2015. Do I have that data first of all? So let's do 2011 and 2012. And I left the instructions a little bit unclear, where I said year-to-date total for 2011 to 2012. Obviously, if it's year-to-date, it would be to the current date, not just 2011 and 2012. But as you see, it got around that. It gave priority to the years that I had specified. So here we have it only for 2011 and 2012. Okay, so yet another way of having an agent and being able to utilize it. I'm looking around for questions. So far, I see none, so we'll move forward.
Question.
Go ahead, Ron.
Sorry for the technical difficulties earlier, but so there's 2 ways you've demonstrated to basically create an agent. What lives on top of that that a user would consume? Because you mentioned it's like a microservice, and so I have that model in my head.
Correct. Good question. So here's what we have. If we go back into the Foundry, I can click on this View Code tab, and basically that model or the agent that's running in the background is accessible by a URI. And let me expand it a little bit. And there we see the URI for my project and the resource. And this is in Python code. I can also see what it would look like in C#, and then I can click this to open it in VS Code. But essentially, this agent is going to be nothing more than a URI call.
Okay.
So
and that gets embedded in your app or whatever you're building, or
exactly.
okay.
Right.
Cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, what you see here is I'm passing in the text that's going to be being passed to the agent. The reason why this is important is you never want to basically have any amount of text entered in, because that's going to reflect on the cost of the tokens. So I want to limit my user to enter in a, let's say 100 characters, 200 characters max, right? And just like we remember from way back when, never trust user input. I want to scrub it, and I want to make sure that it's confined within a specific set of characters, or a specific limit rather, so that I don't increase my token usage.
Speaking of token usage, is there a way to know or estimate how much spend you're doing with this agent?
So you can see, like with every call, as I mouse over the token usage on the bottom, it shows me the input tokens and the output tokens. Now, this input token, basically it includes the set of instructions that's being passed in, as well as the user prompt that the user will enter down here in this area. In addition, if I implement safety messages, that will also add to the token usage. And let me go off into system messages for a second. And let me see. Trying to remember how to get to it. If we go into the AI Foundry, actually, let me do this. Okay, I thought I had it bookmarked, but I guess not. Okay, if we go back into the Foundry, and if we go into the model playground, in the chat playground, you'll see that I have the model that's deployed here. In addition, I can add in a section for safety system messages, and I can check any of these or a variety of these. So these safety messages include harmful content. So I don't want to display pictures of anything that may be violent, such as a gun or a knife or anything like that. I want to avoid ungrounded content, meaning anything that the model has not been trained on, I want to avoid it. Copyright infringements and jailbreaks. Jailbreaks are essentially prompts that are asking the model to go against the instruction set that it's been given. For example, in the one agent that I demonstrated, I said response should be 2 sentences max. If the user enters in, give me a 10-sentence detailed response, then that would be an attempt to jailbreak it, make it go outside of what the user had asked, or rather what the instructions were set for. So these are all good and well. However, with every system message for safety, it incurs a token usage. If I select all of them, as you see here, that's going to be an additional 276 tokens every time I'm making a call to the model. Make sense, Ron?
Yep, thanks.
Excellent, very good. Any other questions? All right, very good. So getting back into our PowerPoint. Another option is the CUA, or the computer use agents. And what this entails is the ability to have an agent that will work on my computer, be able to open up browsers, download files, and be able to interact just like if I had another user sitting at my laptop and doing various things. A better way to explain that is Marco Casalina, and please let me know if the audio doesn't come through, but this is an interesting clip.
Hello, I'm Marco Casalina, VP Products of Core AI and AI Futurist at Microsoft. Today, we're going to look at two groundbreaking innovations in Azure AI Foundry that are set to revolutionize how we think about AI agents. You'll see firsthand the incredible capabilities of the Computer Use Agent, or CUA, model from Azure OpenAI Service, which is an advanced AI model that can literally use your computer to execute tasks autonomously. Alongside the CUA, we also have the Responses API, a unified API that consolidates the retrieval, reasoning, and execution processes into a single call, making it simpler and more efficient to develop AI applications that interact with various tools. Without further ado, let's dive into the demo and witness these capabilities in action. I'm using the Responses API with the Computer Use Agent in Azure OpenAI Service. I've connected it to a Linux virtual machine, which is running on my desktop, and I've asked it to do some grunt work for me. You see, every day I have to go to this site and download this PDF for a shipment, and then I have to go to another site to enter a bill of lading into it. It's going to filter it down because I told it to do it only for the last day. It sees this shipment. Now it needs to download that document. Let's see if it can figure this one out. All right, it's got the PDF. Now it's got to read the PDF, and this PDF goes off the bottom of the page, so it's going to have to scroll. Now, does it remember everything it needs to enter? It has remembered everything that it read on that PDF. It's successful, and now it's asking me for some input. This is the human in the loop part. I think we're good to go. So I say submit it. As you can see, these tools offer some amazing possibilities for automating workflows and enhancing productivity across various industries. Azure AI Foundry continues to push the boundaries of what's possible with AI-driven automation, and we're excited to see how you'll innovate with these powerful tools. For more information, visit aka.ms/CUA_responses API. Thank you for watching.
All right, so as you had seen, basically it's an application or an agent that's running on your local machine, being able to interact with various aspects of the machine, whether it's opening up a web browser or a document, and being able to interact with it, read from one document, enter fields into a website.
Hello.
So one of the things that to consider is basically the orchestration or the patterns. And what this entails is essentially, as we had mentioned earlier, that a microservice is the same as an agent, where it's going to be singular, modularized, it's going to be focused on one task. And the reason for that is you want to be able to have the ability to chain them or orchestrate them. So you can utilize one agent in a variety of different ways in a variety of different applications because it is very singular in its task. How you can set that up is a variety of different ways, as we see here. You can have it where it's hierarchical or a network, meaning that it's kind of a round robin effect. But notice the direction of the arrows. In some cases, it is bidirectional, where it can go off and execute a specific task in a different agent and then be able to respond back with the results. In some cases, like the handoff, for example, as we see in the middle towards the bottom, is that essentially it just calls the other agent, lets it do its thing, and then that agent doesn't respond back with the results. Where this is important is it needs to fit into your business model and what you're trying to do overall. I had a problem recently where I received a confirmation email from my bank, but yet when I went to check the account, the action that I had requested did not take place. And when I asked why that was, well, you had missed the cutoff window. Okay, fine, but why did I get a confirmation email stating that the operation went through? So the key thing here is within your business, if you're going to be executing another agent, either look for the error code that it might produce, but once it moves forward, then you need to be confident in the fact that once that email goes out or once you write to a database, that that action has been actually executed. Kind of common sense, but again, it gets overlooked. And you want to keep that in mind for the orchestration, meaning when I'm making a call, is it going to be a handoff where I don't care what the result set is going to be from that agent? Or do I need to actually get a response back from that agent to ensure that things went well before calling another agent in the chain? So it all depends on what type of orchestration pattern that you set up for your agents. Now, when we deployed the model, I kind of glanced over the model type, but just like everything else, there are pros and cons to the specific deployment type that you're going to implement. Cost is obviously the obvious one, but also keep in mind that it's also dependent on latency and the ability to handle large data sets. So as you see here, there's about 8 or 9 different deployment types, and the description is listed along with the advantage and disadvantage. And you can find that posted on my blog, and I'll share the link with you towards the end of the presentation. In addition, as far as agents and using large language models, depending on what type of business that you're in, whether it's government or banking or insurance, there's different compliance levels that are implemented by agents or approved. So as you see, there's a variety of different compliance types for the AI Foundry agents that are approved. However, the remaining 2, SOC and FedRAMP, are still a work in progress and not fully completed yet. Also, a couple things that I want you to remember. As you're creating the agent and as you're modifying the instructions, these are automatically saved, but only occur when you change focus from the text box that you're in. So as we were creating the agent and putting in the instructions in the instruction box, it didn't get saved until I tabbed out of it. And as I mentioned earlier, everything connects to Azure. So whatever I had done in the AI Foundry ties back to my portal. And to prove that, as we see here, if we go over into my Azure subscription, you see that I have a resource group called RG Sam Nasr 1001, but then it is tied back to the demo that I have created, and we see that we have an AI Foundry, an AI Foundry project, several logic apps for making the external HTTP call, getting the weather, getting a company list. So everything is tied back to a resource group and hence affects my billing as well. So at this stage, I want to pause and see if there's any questions or comments. And if none, then my question for you is, what have we learned here today? So I'd be looking forward to some feedback. Hopefully you learned how to create an agent, how to test it, what to look for as far as the evaluations when you're evaluating the agent, the token usage, and how everything ties back into Azure. Moving right along. If you're interested in having this as a lunch and learn for your team at work, or having this as a training class, you can reach out to NIS Technologies. I'll make my email available, where we can do either training or consulting. In addition, you can find all my contacts available through Linktree/Sam Nasr, and my email, snasr@nistechnologies.com. My Linktree, as I had mentioned. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I would love it if we would. So please feel free to send me an invite. I post articles and Q&As and so forth over on LinkedIn, and it's a great way to essentially share information and a great way to stay connected. And so with that, if there's no additional questions or comments, I thank you all for attending and hope it was beneficial for you. And please keep in mind, just because it's the end of the presentation doesn't mean the dialogue stops here. Feel free to reach out to me if you're starting an agent project and you're running into problems. or you need to bounce any questions off of me, I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. So with that, thank you all for attending. Appreciate your time, and look forward to hearing from you and connecting on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everyone.